I have run the continuance read on 411 subjects across 19 species, and I want to be precise about what that machine does, because the reports that leave this building rarely are. It does not predict. It does not guess. It reaches 60 seconds forward along a fixed line and shows you what is already there, the way a lamp shows you a wall that was always in the room. Free will in the Sci-Fi model is a comforting story. A mind tells itself before the fact, and a eulogy it writes after. The read simply skips the story and gives you the eulogy early. I had run it on soldiers who wept. I had run it on a Vantic magistrate who tried, calmly and repeatedly, to contradict his own recorded minute, and failed every time because the failing was already in the minute. I had never run it on a human until the council asked me to, mostly out of curiosity, the way you might finally taste a food everyone claims disagrees with them. Her name was Mara Voss, 46 years old, a line inspector from a manufacturing consortium, here as part of a routine cultural exchange cohort. Nothing about her file suggested she belonged in the forecast hall. That, I would later understand, was the point. She sat in the observation chair without being asked twice, hands loose on the armrests, watching the ring of projectors spin up around her the way a woman watches a kettle. 22 of the council sat in the tiered gallery above her. I stood at the console with my hand already reaching for the capture key, because that is the job, to record the 60 seconds before they happen, then record the 60 seconds as they happen, and note the distance between the two, which is normally 0. This will show you 1 minute of your immediate future, I told her in the language her cohort had been fitted with. It will be accurate. Please do not attempt to prevent anything you see. It has never once helped. Noted, she said, and smiled the small, unbothered smile I would see so many times afterward that I stopped registering it as strange until it was far too late to stop. The reed locked. The gallery hushed the way it always hushes, a held breath from 22 throats built differently enough that the sound came out wrong, layered, unsettling. The projection painted itself across the floor in front of her. Mara Voss, standing, walking 3 steps to the left, reaching for the observation rail, turning her head toward the gallery, speaking a short sentence we could not yet hear because the audio thread always resolved half a second behind the image. I began the countdown. 60. The image held. 50. She watched her own projected self with the same expression she'd worn watching the projectors warm up, which is to say, mild interest, nothing more. 40. I remember thinking with the small vanity of a technician proud of his instrument that this would be a clean run. 30. Nothing about her physiology suggested distress. Her pulse, visible on the side display, sat exactly where it had sat since she walked in. 20. She stood up. Not the standing the reed had shown. A different standing sooner, at a different angle, weight already shifting toward the exit ramp rather than the rail. The projected Mara Voss kept walking her 3 predicted steps to the left across an empty patch of floor. The real one was already 4 steps to the right, crouched beside the base of the gallery stairs, running her hand along a seam in the flooring panel that, I would learn only afterward, she had noticed was slightly raised the moment she'd sat down, and had decided, apparently without deciding anything at all, was worth a closer look. I did what I have been trained since apprenticeship never to do. I looked away from the readout and at the woman herself. 10 seconds left on the clock, and the projection was still dutifully finishing its performance to an empty stage, walking, turning, mouthing its half-second delayed sentence at a rail nobody was touching. The gallery had gone from held breath to something closer to a low structural groan, 24 throats making a sound none of their languages had a clean word for. The reed does not fail. In 411 runs it had diverged from its own 60-second forecast by margins so small we measured them in fractions of a limb's width. A soldier's fist clenching a half-second early, a magistrate's contrarian lunge, landing 1 degree off from where the projection had already placed him. Reality, in every prior case, had been an actor hitting its marks with minor, forgivable sloppiness. This was not an actor missing a mark. This was a woman who had simply gone and read a different script. When the 60 seconds closed, she was still crouched by the stair seam, one finger tracing the raised panel edge with the unhurried attention of someone checking a receipt. She looked up at the frozen, useless projection of herself still standing at the rail, glanced at it the way you'd glance at a coworker who'd shown up to the wrong meeting, and said, to no one in particular, "That panel's lifting. You'll want to get someone on it before it catches a heel." Nobody answered her. Nobody for several seconds could. I want to explain, as clearly as I am able, why this frightened a room full of people who had watched worse things than a panel and a chair. The continuance read is not a camera pointed at a stage. It is a measurement of the line a mind is already traveling. For it to diverge, the traveler has to leave the line mid-stride, mid-thought, without the hitch of deliberation our own physiology always shows, that half-breath where a sevry mind weighs abandoning a path it has already committed to. Every species we had ever measured showed that hitch. It was, we had assumed, simply what a decision was, friction against a fixed line always losing. Mara Voss showed no hitch. Her body had noticed the raised panel, decided it was worth investigating, and rerouted her entire near-term trajectory before the part of her that could have explained the choice had finished forming a reason for it. She had not fought the future. She had not even seen it as something to fight. She had simply been paying attention to a floor, and the floor won. Counselor Yeth Orvin, senior of the gallery, asked the question everyone else was too rattled to phrase cleanly. How long had she known the panel was there? "Since I sat down," Mara said. "Didn't think about it till the countdown gave me a minute with nothing to do." That was the whole confession. Not defiance, not cleverness, not any of the postures we had prepared contingencies for. Boredom, and a loose floor panel, and a mind that reroutes itself the way water finds a gap in a wall, not around an obstacle it has reasoned about, but through whichever crack happens to be open when the pressure arrives. We ran the read on her twice more that cycle, under tighter isolation, no rail to fidget with, no seam to notice. Both times the projection held for longer 40 seconds, once nearly 50, before something small and unplanned pulled her off her own line. An itch, a sound from the corridor, a private thought that made her huff a short laugh at nothing on the frozen image of herself. On the second run we stripped the chamber down to bare walls and a single light, certain that with nothing left to notice, the line would finally hold to the close. She lasted 41 seconds before she started humming, tunelessly, a few bars of something that meant nothing to any instrument in the room, and the projection lost her a full 9 seconds before its script called for her to stand. The model does not have a term for a mind that keeps generating new reasons to leave the path faster than the path can be recorded. My department has since had to build one. We call it, in the reports that will never leave this floor, the Voss variable, and every projection built after her sits inside error bars 3 times wider than they were the week before she arrived. Junior technicians ask me sometimes whether we could simply remove all stimulus from the chamber entirely. No seam, no sound, no light at all, and let the read run against a mind with nothing whatsoever to notice. I tell them what the second run taught me. A human left with nothing to notice will notice the absence and go looking for something else to want. She never seemed to think any of this was remarkable. When I asked her, before her cohort shipped out, whether she understood what she had done to 411 runs of clean data, she considered it for a moment, the way she'd considered the panel, and said she supposed she just didn't like sitting still when there was something worth looking at. I filed the incident under continuance anomaly, Class 1, and recommended the read never again be used on an unaccompanied human without a structural engineer standing by. The council approved it without debate. Nobody in that gallery asked what would happen if we ever needed to predict what an entire ship full of them might do in a minute they didn't like the look of. Nobody needed to ask. We had already watched one of them, alone, bored, and unarmed, Walk straight off the fixed edge of the future because the floor asked a more interesting question than we did.